6507. Right, let's do a few minutes on energy, because the board of GB Energy has met in Aberdein. Hooray! Chairman of GB Energy, Jurgen Meyer, says Aberdein will lead the charge to clean energy because of its expertise in North Sea oil and gas. This in the same week, incidentally, that the Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch said it was impossible for the UK to meet its net zero target by 2050, which is a goal set by the previous Conservative government. So there you are. Right, shall we start in Aberdein then, Geoff? GB Energy, first board meeting. Exciting moment. How was it?
Well, it wasn't played in front, at Tawdry Stadium in front of 20,000 folk. I mean, to be fair. Look, it's good that they came up. The reaction, I've spoken to a number of people that were present at some of the sessions they did. They did a lot of engagement sessions, which I think is encouraging. And so, yeah, I think there's a cautious optimism. I say cautious because, as we all know, warm words are kind, and Jurgen Meyer's been pretty consistent in being very, very positive, not just for Aberdeen North East, but in terms of what he wants to do across Scotland and the rest of the UK. But it's the action in which they'll be judged, and we need to see the colour of their money and the investments that they seek to make. I think it's important to remember for listeners, though, to give them a little bit of a break, for goodness sake, is that I don't think it will become a fully regulated company. It's still going through Parliament. I think it's not even at the third reading yet. So I think it won't be a formally regulated company until about June. The money that they have now is essentially a minister's direction until that point. So we won't see immediate transformation on the ground. I expect them to make some investments in the next few days and weeks from that original pot that's been allocated, and then there'll be profiled spending beyond that, which they'll have discretion over once they have boots on the ground. But they are starting to employ people, and I think we've got to give it all support because we need this to succeed. And I'll tell you why we need it to succeed, because just this morning we found out two bits of news. One, the EY report that shows that Aberdeen has got the lowest growth of any city in the UK, and the EY say that is entirely almost down to the energy profits levy, just completely stopping production of oil and gas. Of course, you know my argument. All that happens here is we end up importing more. But crucially, and the second bit of news, is that Hunting, a very credible company that's been in Aberdeenshire since 1992, they're an engineering-based company, largely from oil and gas, has announced significant reductions in headcount, restructuring, heading off to Dubai. And this is another point I've been making. Those engineers are exactly what we need for offshore wind, for hydrogen, for carbon capture, should it be approved, and I hope it is. But they're not available at scale now. If we lose the best chance we have to be global leaders in this space, i.e. the highly skilled people, then it will be a huge economic betrayal. So our politicians need to get a grip of this, frankly. A lot of them need to get a grip of this across the board and recognise this has to be a transition. If we lose supply chain companies employing highly skilled people before this great opportunity before us is available at scale, they will be responsible for the biggest economic betrayal in our country's modern history.
Do you know something? See if you went to any other government or capital city on the continent and said, there's a place that's been the energy capital of its nation and one of the energy capitals of the whole continent for 50 years. And it's now at the centre of a transition to offshore wind in particular, and potentially a lot more, tidal and various other things in the future. And it's the central place for that, where the skills are and where the support base is and where the companies are. They would say, oh, wow, that sounds like one of the richest cities on the continent. That must be a great place. How have we turned that place into the slowest growing city in the UK? I mean, that's difficult to do, even if you're trying. That's how bad a job we have done on energy in this country over the last few years. It's an absolute scandal. I mean, it really is. Geoff said the politicians need to get a grip. Boy, they do need to get a grip. I mean, they need to get a grip really quickly. We have made a series, I think, of mistakes. Both governments have made a series of mistakes over a number of years about this whole net zero agenda. But I think principal amongst them must be their complete failure to understand a word that they themselves use all the time, which is the word transition. Why can they not grasp what this is supposed to be? We have this incredible resource, fossil fuel, oil and gas, that we have been using for a long time and which we know we have to transition away from. Why is there even a discussion about that transition? Why have we got to the point where we're actually having to import fossil fuels because we don't want to drill for them ourselves? This is madness. This is capture by anti-capitalists is what has happened here. And this has got to be got over, because if we don't get over this hump now, we're never ever going to get to the point where we can realise the ambitions that we have and the potential that we have in renewables. I mean, this is not working. The governments have got to work better together to make sure this does happen. But I just thought those figures this week from AY were a complete disgrace. And to look at Aberdein and to look at what has happened to it and the growth rates there in a city that should be one of the fastest growing cities in the whole of Europe is unacceptable.
Well said, that man. And if I just may add to that, great comments. There's a real issue around the policy environment that we operate in here as well, which is also having an impact on investors in our renewable sector. So when we had the Anna Sarwar and Jackie Bailey podcast, I took the opportunity to raise the potential for zonal pricing and link to that transmission charging as well. Two massive policies that, if not carried out correctly, will completely cut the knees off of our offshore wind industry in particular, right? I'm delighted to see Scottish Renewables put together a collection of signatories asking the UK government, urging the UK government not to pursue the zonal pricing thing. Still a big issue in transmission charging. I want to bring this back to the conversation we just had about the effectiveness of our politicians. Well, I looked at the Net Zero Energy and Transport Committee, has done no work in the Scottish Parliament on either net zero or energy for the past 6 months. With its work programme almost completely dominated by land reform. Now, land reform is no doubt a very, very important issue. But fundamentally, we're at the cusp of losing one of the greatest opportunities, as I keep saying, for our country. And we ain't even discussing it. We ain't even forensically looking at it. And I've got a lot of MSPs that I've spoken to. I will not name names, who have told me, "Oh, this zonal pricing could be good for my constituents because might get them reductions in their bills." Well, I don't actually believe that for a start. But even if I'm wrong, why are we not forensically challenging that? Why are we not using every parliamentary opportunity to look at these things and say, what is the way forward here that protects that industrialisation opportunity that we have, and also potentially lowers bills? No, we're not even focusing on it. Again, get a grip.
Geoff and Andy, thank you both very much indeed. You can keep in touch with us on the podcast, of course. We'll read your messages on our next episode. You can email hello@holyroodsources.com. You can WhatsApp us 0333 404 6507. And of course, find us on YouTube, find us on X, watch our clips on TikTok, and subscribe to the mailing list at holyroodsources.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.